So I wanted to talk quickly about therapy because I'm such a huge advocate for therapy. I've been in therapy for about 3 or 4 years now. I've gone through a few therapists, but I finally landed on one who I love because of how she takes time to get to know me, because of how she sees me and supports me, and because of how she shows up for me as a therapist. Therapy is interesting because it's like an intimate relationship that's not super, like, it's a personal relationship, but it's not super personal. You know what I mean? But you will tell your therapist things you probably never told anyone. And in that way, it's very vulnerable, it's very intimate. And I finally found a therapist who sees me in my vulnerability, and she's able to help me see myself a little clearer. This last session I had was it was very emotional for me because I was discussing a relationship that means a lot to me that I lost. She told me some things I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear. And it really gave me a lot of clarity on my situation, but also a lot of reassurance that I needed as well, because it's a relationship I don't feel comfortable talking to many people about because of how deep I feel for the relationship. But she left a few notes for me that I want to share. The one reason why I really love the therapist that I have is because after every session, she'll send me a letter about the session we had. And it is so reassuring. I've never had a therapist do that. And she takes her time to really process our sessions and then put it in word form for me to process. And I really appreciate that. It's one of my favorite things about her is that she sends me letters after all of our sessions. And it has really helped me keep track of my growth. So I want to share a few things that she shared with me from my last session. For starters, one thing I've really struggled with in relationships is reciprocity. And I talked to her about how I was always trying in this relationship and the other party I didn't feel like they were trying to make the relationship work as hard as I was. It's connected to a childhood wound of abandonment. However, she put it in a way where I can see that because of how deeply I feel about things, it causes me to try a lot harder than I need to try sometimes. I think her note about that really helped me see where I'm not necessarily wrong or stupid, because I've blamed myself for trying so hard for a lot of things. But her note about that let me know that it's a reflection of how deeply I care about things. And that's something that I've always been challenged on in my relationships, because I don't know, like I think deeply, I care deeply, and that's never going to change, but it's something that I've tried to change about myself. That is a core personality trait of mine. It's something that will never change about me. And I don't want it to change at this point in my life. I think it's one of my favorite characteristics of myself is how deeply I care. And so she let me know that it's not wrong to care deeply. It's just maybe you're not in the right situations where it calls for that. And so you may need to exit those situations if you feel like you have to shrink yourself in order to make the relationship work. The next snippet of the letter she sent me is about how I've been chasing relationships that mirror my core wounds as a child, or my core wounds from childhood. She basically was saying, is it a relationship that's helping me heal, or is it a relationship that is continuing to show me those wounds that I'm running from or that I'm trying to heal from? Because honestly, I think it's the latter. And she kind of clocked it, and I was like, oh, you're right. Like, is it a relationship that's just mirroring the things I'm working on to heal? And because of how familiar it is, and how even in the uncomfortability of the relationship, it's familiar for me, which is why I'm going back to it. So I'm glad she clocked that, which will come back up again. But I feel like that was something that kind of gave me like, ooh, pause, hold on, I didn't think about it like that. Maybe it is that I don't feel comfortable in this relationship, which is why I left it. However, I keep finding myself ruminating on it because it's a familiar space that is not healthy for me. This next one might have been my favorite because I constantly tell people, like, relationships, whether that's friendships, intimate relationships, family, whoever, I don't like to be confused. I know confusion is like a thing that happens, but I don't like to be confused about how people feel about me. It makes me uncomfortable to be confused about how somebody I love feels about me. And I don't like that. And this was very reassuring for me. This part of the letter was very reassuring for me because it showed me that it's okay to not want to be in a place where you are confused about how somebody feels about you. Actually, you should want that for yourself, and you should want a love that is not confusing or unsafe. You should want a love that doesn't feel like it's diminishing you, because that's not love. And if you know me, you know I love me some bell hooks. Her book, All About Love, talks all about that. So this was a very reassuring part for me, and I appreciate her for acknowledging that, because I talked to her about how I don't like to be confused, and she just reassures me that what I want is attainable and what I want is valid. This last part of the letter is my favorite part. First of all, let me just say, I love having a Black woman as a therapist. Best decision I ever made. Anywho, she says, Tiana, you're not needy. And I'm so sorry, but that statement killed me in itself, because the amount of times I've been told that I want and need too much, the amount of times I've been, in my mind, diminished because I've talked to people who have allowed themselves to settle for whatever reason, right? And told them, like, I'm not settling for that. And they've called me too needy. And they've told me my needs are not attainable and not realistic. I can't even count how many times I've heard that. But her just reassuring me that I'm not needy, the things that I want are not too much, completely reassuring, completely healing. Because I don't know, Black women are just told that what they need is too much too many times, honestly, too often. And mind you, you're asking for the smallest thing, like reciprocity or consideration or, I don't know, quality time. These are just some of the things I've asked for. I've been told so many times that it's too much. So many times. For her to just reassure me that my needs are not too much, just a cherry on top of the letter. And this is why I love therapy. This is why I love my therapist in particular, because it's so reassuring. And she still holds me accountable for where I've fallen short. However, she's reminding me that what I need and what I want is attainable. What I need and what I want is not unrealistic, which is what I've heard for so long. So I'm just super relieved and grateful to have a therapist, for one, because I think it's a luxury. Well, it shouldn't be, right? But it is. And to have found a therapist who actually sees me as a full person, as Tiana, who's going to remain Tiana. So I just wanted to share those little bits and advocate for therapy a little bit, because I think we need to do that more often. So yeah, that's all.